How is it possible 21 of USA is illiterate? How do they survive? I was working on a website for a manufacturing plant. The site was live, but I was still adding changing. The shop floor manager came up to me and very emphatically told me I had to stop changing things. My people can read, but my people don't read. They take their finger and read everything on the form, memorize where it is that they have to put what, and then they never read it again. Functionally illiterate, manufacturing high-tech widgets. Because illiteracy isn't an on-off thing. It doesn't mean they literally can't read any words at all. They almost certainly can read some words and can intuit many others from context clues. What they cannot do is determine the meaning of those words when presented to them outside of their usual context. For example, consider the word Trump. Place it on a political sign or in a news article, and even an illiterate person can understand that you're talking about Donald Trump. But now say you're talking about a card game like Spades or Pinochle and you present them with the sentence, "What is the Trump suit in Spades?" Their response might very well be, "I have no idea what suit Trump is wearing, and what does a spade have to do with it?" Consider also that so much of modern language comes with images attached. A person who cannot read could very easily use a cell phone because every icon has a unique image, symbol, or color coding attached. How much reading is required to use Instagram? Or to play most mobile games? You don't need to read a disclaimer to know you've got to hit the green accept button. Plenty of folks today are illiterate because they've never done anything but basic pattern recognition for their whole lives. That's functional illiteracy. Aka those who aren't as proficient in English as they are expected to be. A lot of them are likely immigrants too. Lots of jobs don't require much reading and writing, some don't require any. Illiterate people are invisible to others because they are stuck in low-paying, menial, dead-end jobs. I've worked with plenty of people who are functionally illiterate. They may know what the words are, but have a hard time translating it to a meaning. I was once called to help someone with a problem. I had previously observed that he had the ability to do whatever he already knew how to do, but almost no ability to figure anything out, so this was going to be interesting. I asked him if he had the procedure, then handed him a copy of it, because of course he didn't, and asked him which step he was on. He found where he needed to be, so I asked him, "What does that tell you to do?" He read it aloud to me slowly, but perfectly, then with a straight face asked me if it meant to do exactly what he just told me. It was like the parts of his brain in charge of speaking and understanding weren't even in the same zip code. I used to live in Alabama and worked for a house called veterinary practice. Our calls often took us to very rural areas. You would not believe, and I cannot accurately describe the level of ignorance and overall lack of education in some of these areas. Whatever the worst stereotypes and caricatures of stupid Southerners you can imagine, the reality is worse. I feel like I should clarify that I am not being hateful. Many of these people are absolutely wonderful human beings. For a variety of systemic and socioeconomic reasons, they have been isolated from the educational opportunities they should have had, and as a result lack the capacity to even fully understand what has been withheld from them. There's still a lot of small-scale subsistence farming and often very tight-knit communities centered around church and a spirit of helping your neighbors. That's mostly how they survive. Mind you, there are also a lot of absolutely hateful, horrible shit for brains types who survive off meth and crime. Lol, read our teachers. Students are a nightmare, and teachers aren't allowed to make them be literate. No one will make kids do what they should. They do it by reading. That statistic is intentionally misleading. That percentage is the percent of people who are under the level expected of someone in their age bracket. It doesn't mean they are entirely unable to read, just not at the level they should be. If you read a stat about literacy that does not define literacy, discard that stat. What does the two bows with the slash between them mean? Traffic signs aren't paragraphs that have to be read. A lot of this has to do with IQ and the fact that key pieces of what you need to survive are given to you at the most immature time of your life. People thought check fraud was a money hack. That's beyond teaching someone how to read and comprehend. That's IQ and herd mentality. As a teacher, I've seen 18-year-olds who just fully want to be ignorant. Willful ignorance is stupidity. I can explain a tariff better than most, but I still have a lot to learn. But there were people fully confident that you can replace income taxes with tariffs and everything would be better. That's beyond illiteracy. That's giving up your brain power to the service of someone else. That's wanting to be treated like a child. I used to teach adult literacy. Most of them are intelligent and they've learned a million coping skills. They just had learning differences that weren't addressed. I dated a guy for a couple months before I realized he was functionally illiterate. I think he read about a second grade level. It took me that long to catch on. He was very smart. And they can't do mathematics either. 3 retail cashiers this week couldn't count the less than 0.5 I handed them in change. Literally couldn't count the change. I had to count the 3 or 4 coins for them. I think functionally illiterate is more accurate. They can read a few things, a few words here and there, and figure out for the most part what something means. They cannot read instruction manuals except for the pictures, don't read books, magazines, but they can muddle through simple things. It is scary. Taught a class that gave an oral option for the final exam to help people not good with reading. It was really designed for younger kids in the class, but every time, we had about 13 of the class opt for the oral exam. The illiteracy to prison pipeline is so strong. The private prison complex, and the politicians they pay off makes billions off illiterate people and want to keep us that way. Seeing how most people online do not know the difference between then and then, your and your, there, fair and there, per se and per se, lay down and lie down, whose and so on, while also saying, could would have instead of the correct could should view would, a couple something instead of the correct a couple of something, and of course try and instead of try to. I sometimes wish I was illiterate. Adult literacy is sometimes defined as reading above the 6th grade level. So some get by because much is written at a fairly low level, at least instructions, media, etc. Also, a lot of information is available orally now, through videos with sound, audiobooks, speech-to-text, and text-to-speech apps. About 1/3 of USA illiterates were born in another country, so they may be literate in their birth language. More and more written material is provided in multiple languages now, especially instruction booklets. Studies have shown 50 to 80 of those reading below 8th grade level have learning disabilities. So between English as second language and learning disabilities, statistics seem to explain most of those 20 of the population with low reading levels. It isn't generally an intelligence problem. They have tons of coping skills. For example, in middle school, my learning disabled relative would read aloud almost every word in a story wrong and misspell almost every word in an essay they wrote about it. But they could answer every question correctly about the story, whether asked orally or in a multiple choice test. The brain is an amazing thing. Although officially testing as illiterates, some actually do quite well functionally. This statistic is generally misleading. These statistics look at English literacy, and the reason why states like California, New Jersey, Texas, and New York score so low in literacy is because they have a boatload of immigrants that don't speak English as their primary language. If you look at literacy in any language, the literacy rate jumps to 99, and these people function just fine because their local community operates in their native language and the US government translates documents into pretty much every language under the sun. It doesn't get much better when you find out the average reading level in the US is 7th grade. Doesn't this statistic refer to English literacy only? Some students are still taught whole words, reading,